everybody, it's me, Nate, aka Devil Dog, and I'm back this time with a complete walkthrough for the level 67 dungeon in the new Stormblood expansion for Final Fantasy Online. This is Doma Castle. This dungeon will drop level 282 weapons, armor, and items, and at the end you have a chance for a possible very rare minion drop as well. Before I get started, I want to give a huge shout out to one of my free company members, Ryu. Thank you so much for helping me through this dungeon. Even though it's really not that difficult, it's really nice to always have a friend by your side. Now, as you first start out in this dungeon, you will deal with several pools of small mobs of pretty much trash. But these guys come frequent and they hit hard. So you will have to deal with a large amount of them at a time, and they do hit rather hard. So it is in the best interest of everybody to survive that you don't pull a large amount. Pull them in small groups at a time as you go through this area. As you progress, you'll come across this guy, a Doma Colossus. He hits hard. Just watch out for his frontal slash attack and some other moves, but other than him hitting hard, he's not really a big deal. Then you will come across these guys right here. You have like a Doma gunship and some Doma sky armor. It is best to burn down the ship first and then the armor. You can do it either way. Just make sure, like at least with this one, we placed a marker over his head, so we all focused on the center guy first. In this video we didn't do that, but it's best as long as you make sure that you all focus on one at a time and burn them down. Once you get past these guys, you're pretty much on to your first boss. Alright, now it's time for your first boss, the Magitek Rearguard. He has several different moves, but nothing that earth-shatteringly difficult. Generally, he'll start off with Garlean Fire, and as you see here, it will place an icon leading forward with an arrow. Just avoid that, and you'll be fine. As you go by this, you'll see that in the west side, you'll have a whole line of these Magitek bits. Throughout this battle, they will randomly pick an area to lay down this AoE blast. Just avoid it. Do not get in the middle of it when it comes down, and you'll be fine. Do not touch them because they will kick your butt. Other than that, that's pretty much really all that this guy really does, is the Garlean Fire move along with some other attacks, and the main thing is the Magitek bits. But as you see here, you'll have these other little Magitek bits that'll fly across the arena, and what you want to do is just make sure to avoid them. Do not touch them, because if you do, they will explode and give you a good amount of damage. So that's really about it. Just avoid his Garlean Fire, which is a line AoE attack. Watch out on the west side for the lines of the Magitek bits that will send down a line AoE, and of course don't touch the ones that wander across. Like you see right there, that was a close one. He almost got me. As long as you just pay attention to those mechanics of this fight, you should have no problem in beating the Magitek Rearguard and possibly getting a pretty cool item in the process. This next section does throw a couple little different things at you, but nothing that spectacular. When you first get up to this area, you have to burn down the Doma Vanguard and some of his buddies. He's not really that difficult. Just watch out for his AoE blast, which you can see is a pretty wide one, but normally you have more than enough time to just walk out of the way. But as you get a little farther along, you'll come to these areas where there's these cannons that are blasting this AoE blast on the ground. And what you want to do is avoid them, of course, but try to time it to where you and your rest of your group, normally the tank will get the aggro of the enemies and pull them up over to this corner right up here. As long as you do that, then you do not have to deal with the blasts coming from them cannons. Burn these guys down, and you'll go to another section where you have to do the same thing. The only difference is here is once you go ahead and you pretty much do the same thing, you'll just have some different enemies you have to fight. I think at this time it's going to be a Doma Reaper, which is pretty much like some Magitek, as you see it right up here. Once again, just have the tank pull them up to the far corner up here, right around all these cannons, and you won't have to deal with them at all. Go ahead and burn these guys down, and after you get them beat, you'll be on to the second boss. Alright, the second boss in this dungeon is the Magitek Hexa. He has several different new little mechanics, but none of them are really difficult at all to figure out. First of all, he'll cast all kinds of different AoEs, like Circles of Death right here, and you just want to avoid them. Then he'll randomly pick somebody to stick the classic arrow over your head. You want to stack that way to split the damage to avoid really getting your butt handed to you. The main mechanic with this fight is he'll have these things called tripwires, as you'll see coming up right here. What you want to do is avoid standing really close to them, because once they activate, they fill out and, pretty kind of wide. Now, if you get hit by these, they will have a knockback effect that will bounce you around like a ping pong ball and make you eat a lot of damage. So just keep that in mind. Be very careful when you're actually dealing with those guys, and you should be fine. The only other real mechanic that he does in this is he'll put these towers up, and you'll see one that'll appear in the back here shortly, and it'll either be a red tower or it'll be a blue tower. And generally, as you see back there, there's a tower right now. I can't get to it. Just make sure that somebody is standing in that tower. Whenever there's like a certain number of towers, up to 3 I think, make sure that you have somebody in each tower and you should be fine. It can be kind of difficult, especially with the tripwires and also the stacking mechanic. As you see, I can't get to them there, so I'm gonna have to let them eat a little extra damage. Sorry guys, but as long as you kind of stay close enough but far enough away to where you can split when you have to. I have noticed with these trip lines too, it can be kind of difficult to get to the towers in time, but the trip lines seem to go away a little bit before the end of the tower phase, so you should be able to get to the towers in time to actually split the damage. And as you see here, a lot of times you'll have to run to your buddies to make sure you get split the damage there. But as long as you just watch out for his AoEs, avoid those tripwires to have a knockback effect, and make sure someone stands in the towers whenever they appear to split the damage, you should have no problem in beating the Magitek Hexa. Now, after you beat him, naturally you got to kill some more mobs of enemies. These guys are really nothing major other than the fact that, once again, there's a lot of them. And as you progress up this area, you also have to deal with some AoE blasts that will appear on the ground. Once you get far enough, you'll have like this mini boss you'll have to fight before the final boss, the Doma Armored Weapon. He can be kind of difficult because a lot of his moves, like this laser blast, you'll actually lay down and you can actually see it. But some of his frontal blasts you actually don't see. And even with the tank actually doing its best, sometimes I've seen this guy just break away from the tank and turn and blast you, and it does do some pretty good damage. So the healer will have to just pay attention to everybody and make sure they're keeping them topped off on their health as everybody does their thing. And it will take a little bit to beat this guy, but he's really not that difficult. And after you do this, you get to the final boss of this dungeon. Alright, your final boss of this dungeon is the Hyper-Tuned Grindwat. I don't know if I'm saying this guy's name wrong, but I really don't care. I just know I'm glad I finally got to kill this bunghole. Now, when you fight this guy, he does have multiple different mechanics, almost like a combination of the previous bosses in this dungeon. Really not that bad. Now, one thing is he does like to do is attack the tank with a chainsaw. As you see there, that really nice chainsaw. He'll lock onto the tank, and he'll burn you down pretty fast with his chainsaw, but he can also target just about anyone else with the chainsaw. But when he actually does that, try to stay away from him as well, because he'll end up doing this line attack, and he has almost like a Gatling gun effect where it will actually shoot straight out. Now, as you see here, he will actually place an icon over your head. When you get that icon, you want to space them out away from everyone. Do not stack. As you see here, the gun saw, if he actually starts hitting you with the gun saw, just make them stand away from everybody else. Then he will pick somebody to place this icon on, which is pretty much like a meteor drop. So you want to place it as far away from everyone else as possible and run to the opposite side of the arena floor. That way you take less damage from him. Now, as you see, he doesn't take much to beat as you burn through him, but he'll start adding new mechanics along the way. Like you see these saw blades that are behind me. You can't see them, but they're like the big rotating saw blades. Once they fully charge up, they will zip across the area, as you see right here, and do a room-wide damage. Now, they'll also do this throughout the whole damn battle as well, where he'll place the icons over your head where you'll have to try to split apart from the other players, but it can be kind of difficult, especially with those those wheels, those grind wheels, because their placement is kind of, I wouldn't say random, but they don't stay in the same place. They'll actually move throughout the battle, and they will do different AoE attacks. Generally, when he sets that up with those grinder wheels, he'll also follow up by always placing one of those little triangle icons over your head, and you want to space them out. Now, as the battle progresses, he'll start laying down these annoying lines again, these trip lines just like the second boss. Now, this will be a combination of all these. He will set down the pretty much meteor blast on someone, the trip line attack, these buzzsaw blades, also while firing his Gatling gun, and also his little room-wide attack. So just pay attention. You should have no problems in beating this guy. He's actually not that difficult. They just throw a lot of different AoE attacks at you. Like I said, those saw blades will lay down stuff you'll have to avoid. The red triangles over your head you want to try not to stack with the other players. Whenever he gets you with his Gatling gun attack, try to stay away from the other players while he shoots you. He will lock onto somebody and get him with his chainsaw, and of course those stupid trip lines and that meteor drop. As long as you just pay attention to everything, you'll get the hang of this fight no problem, and you'll be kicking this guy butt, and you won't have to hear him say die, die, die ever again. This was Nate, aka Double Dog, and I want to thank everyone who watches this video. I want to thank everyone who subscribes to my channel. Please leave a comment below if you thought this was helpful in any way in getting through this dungeon. And I always got to end my videos by saying, people, have fun, play hard, and the devil is in the details. Peace out.